Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 2393 Appaloosa Way here in West Linn. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street facing the front of the house. So we are on the left side of the home, but right at the rear left corner of the house there. So if you round that corner, you're into the backyard. And this is on the left side of the home. We've got a 4-inch ABS cleanout. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Waters are running. We're going to zero out the foot counter here at the bottom of the cleanout. Line swaps over to cast iron pipe immediately upon access. Off we go. I can't tell what you got there. We're going to revisit that spot on the way out. You can't tell if there's a big, huge chunk of scale build up there, or if it's a spot where there was a past blockage or something like that. This is unique to have cast iron out to this distance relative to most homes from this era. Typically what you end up with is cast iron only reaching out about 5 feet outside the home, and then the rest of the way to the street is typically going to be concrete pipe from this particular era. If you're going to have old pipe products, cast iron's generally the stuff you want to have. It holds up for quite a long time. Now in this case, it looks like they ran it to about the street edge of the right-of-way. We're just transitioned there over to concrete. The camera is upside down right now, if you didn't figure that out already. Yeah, some of those stringy items hanging down there from the top of the pipe, first glance look like cobwebs, but they appear to be too thick. Especially the ones that are up inside the pipe joint, those are root hairs poking through there. Not cobwebs. And that right there is the main connection at about 64 feet. Alrighty. I'm going to come back here. I got to pull back just a little bit to get the camera straightened out. We're going to go locate. Generally speaking, in this part of town, unless something has changed, I believe the homeowner is responsible all the way out to the main lateral in this part of town. So, and we're going to go over some things as we come back in. What I did notice is we have a fair amount of pipe joints in the concrete pipe that are showing moisture staining at them, like they're weeping moisture through. So, anyway, the root intrusion here is a spot I do recommend a fix on, but I'm going to go over what I think should be done with this thing as it sits right now. All right, located the camera successfully. Line terminates out on, I think it's Palomina, the side street directly to the left of the house. So I snapped a photo here. I'm having some issues with my paint can. Something's busted on the inside of it. It's not letting paint blast out of it. But anyway, there is a if you go stand out in Palomina, kind of facing the house in the general direction where this cleanout's at, the line shoots. I took a photo. It terminates pretty much smack dab in the middle of the road, right where a speed bump is at. So you've got roots there, and I'm getting almost 11 foot 2 inches deep at that location. It's way down there. So when you're talking digging a hole like that, and real quick, what you see protruding to the pipe joint there, that appears to be dirt. And at this point in this line's existence, concrete pipe, that is not uncommon to see. The reason I like to point that out, and I can tell based on how that water line is formed, it kind of creates a triangular shape up towards the joint. That is a general indicator that groundwater is seeping to those joints. There's also a little bit of dirt sticking out of that one too. What it can cause slowly but surely over time is settling. As this line sits right now, the concrete pipe has stayed put very nicely. What you run the risk of, and not every line will do it, it depends on what the line is bedded in. If it's bedded in gravel, sometimes these lines can stay put for quite a long time, but they can also settle over time when those joints allow groundwater and dirt to seep through them, which it looks like most of these are doing to some extent. I don't see any settling yet, but what I'm getting at here is you're talking, looking at the cost of digging an 11-foot deep hole in the middle of a street like that. The cost to just fix that one pipe joint, you can probably epoxy line the entire sewer line for less than the cost of digging up that one joint. So it doesn't really make sense to spot repair this line. And the line has good enough slope and grade as it sits right now. You are getting some gunk out here at this point. That looks like general buildup. Although it's hard to get a good gander at that because of all the junk sitting there. I'm not entirely sure why the debris built up the way it did in that location. I'm going to do a few locates here, but you know, from that standpoint, rather than do a spot repair on this, I'd rather, you know, as long as we don't see any standing water as we come back in here, my 2 cents on it is this: rather than fix one pipe joint, I'd rather see you spend probably less money epoxy lining the entire thing and calling it a day. You've got a fully updated line for probably less than it would cost to dig an 11-foot hole deep right in the middle of the roadway. And on top of that, what you're also going to do is seal up the pipe joints. You're going to prevent any possibility of those joints leading to hydro erosion. The concern is over time, if those joints allow enough dirt to come through them, it can erode the support out from underneath the sewer line and cause slow but sure settling. And once a line settles bad enough, it gets to a point where you really don't want to be doing a trenchless repair system on it. And you're looking at a much more costly style repair at that point. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. It's not that the line is not functioning. It actually has quite good flow. You have some debris there at the end of the cast iron. But that may just because someone flushed a wipe down the line or something like that and it caused some debris to pile up behind it. Overall, so far, we've got good slope and grade. So you want to, with the trenchless repair systems now, rather than let a line wear out completely, it's ideal to catch them at a particular point in time and preserve what you have rather than let it get too far gone. When you're talking cost difference here, especially a line this deep under a roadway, the repair cost difference in a circumstance like this is significant. It wouldn't surprise me if it would cost you 2, 3, 4 times more money to update this traditionally. Even a semi-trenchless option like a pipe burst or something like that could still cost considerably more. So I would look into one of those repair systems. I think the liner makes sense right now. We'll see how the rest of the line looks as we come back in. But so far, this looks like a good arrangement for that. All right, so we're sitting right about where the right-of-way is. I'm taking photos of all this, and I'll even go over the photos with my S Pen and draw the route the line takes. Getting about 8 feet deep there, and that's sitting about 5 feet from the sidewalk edge. That's on the house side of the sidewalk. I'm actually kind of amazed you don't have roots through that spot right there. That transition joint sits almost directly under quite a large tree. You know, and at this juncture, you know, we'll see how this cast iron's looking here as we come back in. There was a spot in particular here. On my camera, it does not get a great view right there. It almost looks like you could have a hole that formed there. As it looks like the test Y is coming down right up ahead there. Camera's upside down right now. On the bottom of the screen, though, if you see how there's an extra red spot right in front of you, that looks like that's where the test Y comes down, right before the transition joint. And that's where about you would expect to see that occur, right there. When you round the bend here, it's just a very hard spot to keep your camera lens clean because of the gunk in the line. It's where that big flake of something was sitting there right when we came through here the first time around. It's kind of bottom left-hand corner of the screen right now. It's a hard spot to get a good view of. I'm going to go turn the water back on here for a second. Yeah, that kind of has the appearance that something's going on there. I think this is where we had that big flake of debris originally sitting. My camera, it's just the angle of the pipe here is just right to where the lights of the camera point downward rather than up at the top of the line there. But there's some kind of opening there. It's just hard to say what it is exactly. Yeah, you get a little better view there. There is some kind of opening there of some kind. And then there's another one right there. You can clearly see it. Right now it's bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So it's possible that one of these openings is a test Y. It's, you know, and I guess it's possible someone could have accidentally put two in. Theoretically, you could tie storm into that spot right there. I mean, it's circular shape enough that it might very well be a fitting, a tie-in. That's a really hard spot there to get a view of. And homes this age, it's not uncommon to get storm systems connecting in to sewer lines, so that's also possible what that is there. You do have some what look like roof granules that kind of piled up a little bit just beyond that, where I was talking about the debris that had hung up. And that would explain where those granules actually came from. If that's where a storm system ties in, any water flowing off your rooftop is going to carry roof granules with it. You have got some level of channeling starting in a couple spots, like right here. You've got a little bit of a trough that's forming in the flow line. It's not perforated through. It's not ultra advanced either. It's something to kind of be aware of more than anything. That's where the flow line slowly but surely gets eaten away. And why all this debris right here piled up is kind of an unknown too. I'm not sure if what that looks like there is a spot where blockages happen, and potentially more than once. You've got extra amounts of debris and you've got stuff hanging from the top of the pipe, hair bits and stuff like that, which indicates at least a blockage has occurred there at some point in time. Beyond that, it's hard to tell. It's also right where a turn is at. Turns are just natural pinch points. They're the most likely place in a sewer line to get a blockage. And we're now going backwards into the home here. Line next down to 3-inch pipe right as you go backwards. Everything from this point forward is exposed piping in the crawl space. Anyway, that first area there where we've got some debris built up right on that turn, it's really hard to say what led to that. The clean out there, part of the reason I went backwards was to see if the pipe was updated on the interior. It would explain why there's a newer clean out out here. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a brand spanking new clean out in otherwise original sewer line. That generally indicates a line was installed, or a clean out was installed for the purposes of drain cleaning. Usually it's due to roots or something of that nature. So on that turn there, beyond some debris, it's hard to say what led to it. It could have just easily been someone flushed too much stuff down the line and got hung up on a turn, which is a common location to get blockages. So right now, because of the root intrusion in the line, what I'm recommending a repair on, in conjunction with some joints that are showing moisture intrusion, what I recommend here at the least is updating the concrete section of the sewer line. That starts from the right of way. I'll have to go back and review the notes here. But you know, it's approximately it's approximately half the sewer line. It's the latter half of it. In an ideal scenario, this is the time to do it, especially with the amount of foliage you have in this yard. There's a lot of bushes, trees, and things. You know, what I'd really like to see is just the line updated from the clean out to the main. It's the ideal time to do it, especially if you're going to go the trenchless route and do a liner on it, which is what I would suggest looking into first and foremost. You can do it however you want to, but when you're talking the cost to dig an 11-foot deep hole like that on a road like this, I can all but guarantee you digging that hole is going to cost significantly more than simply lining the sewer line. It is in most cases anyway. So at the least here, I'd like to see that concrete section be updated to ensure that it doesn't go south on you and settle like crazy, and or have any of those roots come home to roost and turn into an issue. That also prevents you from having to go tear the road open at some point and spend considerably more money updating it. So from just a purely flow standpoint, you do have a little bit of debris in the line in a couple locations, but overall, line has good flow to the main. So it's functioning quite nicely in that regard. I'm more concerned about this from a structural standpoint and longevity, what that's going to turn into in time. So, and I also never know if any of these things are being cut back to minimize the appearance of them, the roots out there in the road, or anything else along the way. So if you do any repair work on the line, I would highly recommend rescoping afterwards to check the work, whether you do a liner, a dig style repair, pipe burst, whatever. It's important to rescope and check the work. If no repairs are done, I would recommend rescoping the line at about the 1 year mark. That's to get a baseline for, you know, how those roots are growing, if they're growing aggressively or not. I never know if people are aware of them and if they're doing maintenance cleaning from time to time to keep them cut back and at bay. So what looks like a smaller root intrusion now may in reality be a larger one if you give it a chance to grow back. As we sit here right now, though, as far as flow goes to the main, we have good flow to the main lateral. Line is functioning properly in that regard. Not functioning properly, as at least the concrete is related, and being a completely watertight sewer line, and you have at least the root intrusion there at the end of the line.